What is going on, everybody? And happy Father's Day. At the time of this recording, it is June 16th, 2024, and it is officially Father's Day. So, to all the fathers out there who are leading by example, who are loving unconditionally, and being the example for your family, for your kids, most importantly, and for those you lead and those you love. Today's episode is going to be about fathers, about Father's Day. So, ladies, stick around because some of these principles apply to you as well, to the marriage, to the bond between parents and children. And I'll tell you, as someone who grew up without a father, without a good father figure, without a real example of how to be a man, I want to speak to you guys as well because the importance of a father in a young kid's life is so important. Many of you know that I do a lot of work with youth, specifically young men, and it's it was an exciting and really eye-opening experience to get into that field. But what led me there was my own experience growing up without a father and struggling most of my youth, my childhood, and I want to bring to light the importance of being a good man, being a good father for those you lead and those you love. And it's important because even if you don't have kids, you are an example to somebody, and you never know the impact and influence you're going to have in a young person's life. And I'll tell you that there's a lot of things and obstacles and craziness going on in the world today. And for our youth, my heart aches and my heart breaks, but my heart is full of joy because I know my responsibility and my role is more important now than ever before. And so is it for you. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I'm not a dad, or I don't have kids, or whatever the case may be, stick around because you are the example. And that's more important than anything you could ever accomplish, is being that example for other people. Now, this podcast is geared towards leadership, and understand that when you are stepping out into the world, you are an example for somebody. You are influencing somebody. Now, whether that's a good or bad example is up to you. We always have the choice and the decision to make that allows us to be that positive influence in the world. And so, as we talk about this, I want to set the table with some statistics that will kind of help you understand the significance of the roles that you fulfill. Now, I've done research on this. I've done a TED talk on fatherless homes, the importance of it, but also I've lived it. I've grew up with pretty rough childhood, but I was able to navigate that and to achieve some kind of success, if you will. I'm a full-time father. I'm a full-time husband, full-time naval officer. I'm a full-time leader and resilience speaker. And my passion and purpose is to not just learn about leadership, but to be the example and to practice leadership every single day. And in the role that I fulfill today, I lead thousands of people. I influence a lot of people through this platform, through my career, through my day-to-day activities. So not just a preacher, but a practitioner. I encourage you to do the same. But let's dive into some of the statistics that will kind of drive the points that I'm going to make home. Okay. Number one, poverty, right? Children in father absent homes are almost 4 times more likely to find themselves poor, to be under the poverty line. And 12% of children in married couple families were living in poverty compared to 44% that come from mother-only families. Now, this is important because whenever you look at the youth, when you look at young individuals, and I say young, I'm 38 now, but like anybody 18 and under, and even grown adults that are 21, 22, 23 that are navigating life, poverty today is a lot easier to fall into based off of just the economy, the market. There's the way our world is operating today. And as a father, I think about this with my 2 boys that I have now, who are 8 and 7. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest things that we can give to them is not just monetary value, not just materialistic riches, but the meaningful relationship, right? Riches don't come just from money. It comes from meaningful, deep relationships, but also passing on those characteristics, those values and standards in which one should operate. And so the statistic was alarming because, man, 44% of children that come from single parent homes um, are 44% more likely to be find themselves in poverty. And I know for the fathers that are listening to this, and even the mothers, the last thing you want to do is to pass that poverty on down to your children. And so the next one is drug and alcohol abuse. Statistics show the Department of Health and Human Services found that fatherless children are at a greater risk of drug and alcohol abuse. And if you look at the world today, I mean, drugs, alcohol addictions are rampant in our country and probably all over the world. And when you look at the study, it shows that most kids that come from single parent homes are at greater risk for drug and alcohol abuse. And a lot of this has to do with numbing the pain of having to navigate these obstacles, these barriers in life. And they're so easily accessible today. And I was speaking to a high school a couple of years ago, and they were telling me that at the age of 12, at the age of 11, this is like sixth graders, most of their kids have experienced drug and alcohol abuse. And many of the kids that are in fifth and sixth grade have already experienced and have experience with marijuana, cocaine, ecstasy, and most importantly, I mean, alcohol. And one thing that I found is that alcohol today is one of the most deadliest drugs because it's so readily available. And if you just think about this, somebody who is struggling with alcohol as a parent, it's in your refrigerator, it's accessible to your kids, and then they watch what you do, and guess what? They're going to follow suit. They're going to experience that, and they're going to try that out because they see dad doing it. They see it as a normal day to day activity, and they want to be just like you. The example that you set doesn't come from the words that you say, but the actions that you take. And when you make that a norm inside of your home, when you make that a norm in your daily day activities, your day to day life, your kids are going to want to be like that. They're going to want to be like you. And the worst thing you could do is help them do that by making it accessible for them. Now, I'm not saying drinking is a bad thing, but when you overindulge and you're numbing out your reality, don't be surprised if your kids do the same thing. And especially when there's a single parent in the house, especially, moms, you're working multiple jobs, just trying to keep food on the table. Dads, you're just trying to make a living. I couldn't imagine trying to raise two kids on my own and trying to deal with the pressure of just being there every single day. And so instead of being present, most people will numb the reality of what is. And your kids are going to feel that emotionally, physically, spiritually, and mentally. And what happens is they're going to try that out. And at this young age, while their brains are being molded, they're trying to find their way, they're trying to find out who they are. What happens? They experience drugs, they hang out with the wrong crowd because you're not giving them the attention. They go find it somewhere else. And don't be surprised if they're influenced by negative factors, negative people. And so with that, you got to understand that it's your job to surround yourself with good people, regardless of where you came from, regardless of what you've been through. The buck stops with you. You should be changing that legacy. You should be rewriting the script. You can't go back and change how it began, but you can always change how it will end. And this is the important thing. It doesn't matter how you began. It doesn't matter how it started. What matters is how you choose to find yourself at the end when you are going through this life and you're creating your legacy. My dad is addicted to drugs even till this day. And I had the opportunity to carry that legacy and give it to my children, but I chose not to do that. I chose to change that trajectory. I chose to be the example. And as much as I wanted things to be different, I couldn't go back and change the beginning. But what I could do is make the decision, the choice to change how it would end. And that's a responsibility that I take very seriously today. And so the next one, 71% of high school dropouts are from fatherless homes. 71%. And the study showed that most kids at the age of 16 that are raised in single family homes, single parent homes, will have left school, left the education system, and um, find themselves in a job that's making minimum wage, that's going to find themselves going back. It ties into that poverty uh, statistic. You know, if you don't get an education, if you don't have some kind of skill set, you're not going to be able to add value to people. And the money that you make is directly reflected upon the value that you add to the world. And so 71% of high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. Now, when I look back at my life, I graduated high school with a 1.8 GPA. I was raised by a single mother for most of my life. And then, you know, she married a guy who struggles with alcohol. And I found myself experimenting with alcohol at a young age. I found myself falling into these statistics. And I can tell you that, you know, 1.8 GPA didn't get me into college. I joined the military at the age of 17, and I was able to navigate and realize that I got to change. I got to do something different. I can't just regurgitate what I was given. And now I got a bachelor's degree, I got a master's degree. I am a healthcare professional, and I see these things as a nurse, you know, taking care of people who are dying from illness that was induced by drug and alcohol abuse. I see the effects of living a life not by intention, but by accident, by just letting things happen to you. And the next statistic is even more alarming, especially today in my role as an educator. This mental health crisis that we have in the world. It says that children of single parent homes are twice more likely, 2 times more likely to commit suicide. And it's alarming because a lot of people will check out when things get so hard that they just give up. And most importantly, give up on life. And, you know, I look at these young kids that I speak to today, that I mentor, and I just can't imagine being in that place where life is so hard that you just have nowhere to go, nobody to turn to. And so as a result, you take your own life. But if you look at the world today, I mean, mental health is a big thing. And most importantly, if you look at the news and you watch like these shootings, these you know, these mass shootings, and kids that go to the schools and kill other children and parents and teachers, a lot of them come from single family homes to which the father is not around. They didn't have somebody to speak life into them, to show them and help them understand the value of a person's life. And it's not a coincidence that the statistic and the result is most of these kids come from single family homes. And it's just that chaos that's created in that environment causes chaos inside of that young person's mind, to the point where they go and inflict harm on other people. And I just want you to understand that these four factors, right? These four studies, these four statistics are just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many other things that we can attribute to, but this podcast isn't going to be about the negative. I want to share with you 5 things that I've learned through my own journey of navigating being a father, being a husband, being a leader. And by no means do I have it all figured out. Like, I'm still learning every single day. I'm still growing. I'm still navigating this thing called life, and being a good husband, a good father, and a good leader. And if you were to ask my wife and my kids, if they were to come in here and be on this show, they would tell you that I am a good father. I'm a good husband. I love, I lead. I strive to be the example. And so I want to let you know that these 5 keys that I'm going to share with you today are not the end all be all, but these are a starting point, and this is from my own experience, and hopefully they'll serve you today. So let's dive into them real quick. Number 1, what I found navigating being a father. You know, one of the scariest things in my life ever, not the deployments, not, you know, saving people's lives, not witnessing people die and all these things in the military and with my profession. The most scariest thing for me was finding out that I was going to be a father, and most importantly, raising a young man. It was the scariest time in my life, and I still remember it till this day. I literally sat in my car and cried and just thought, man, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I had no idea. And it was in that moment that I realized that my only job is to be the father that I never had, to be the man that I needed as a child, to be that person I needed when I struggled. And so for you guys out there, you fathers out there, as you think about today, I want you to ask yourself, am I being the person that I needed? Am I being the man, the husband, the father, the leader that I needed when I was a young man? Am I being the father that my children deserve? And this is regardless of whether you are divorced, whether you are married and living a wonderful life and you have a beautiful marriage. Your job every single day is to be the father that you needed as a child. And when you think about that, it's as simple as sitting down and thinking about, what are the things that I needed? What are the opportunities that I didn't have? And how can I give those to my children? That's it. And even today, when I don't know what to do, when I'm stuck or I'm lost or I'm stuck in my brain, my head, my negative thinking, I just revert back to this question: who did I need as a child? Who was the man that I needed? Who was the leader that I needed? Who was the father that I needed, and go lead and be that person. And when you do this, it's very simple. You can become your own coach. You can become your own advocate. You can surround yourself by those men and then absorb those skills, principles, and practices. I'm very blessed to have amazing men in my life that are mentors, that are the example, that share their struggles, that share how they navigate it, to share how they raised their kids. And I don't just mimic that or regurgitate it. I learn from it. I model and then modify it to fit my family. And so the same thing goes for you. If you're surrounded by people who are drug addicts, then you're probably going to be a drug addict. If you're surrounded by alcoholics, then you're probably going to be an alcoholic. If you surround yourself by people who are committing adultery, who are abusing their family, then you're probably going to be that person too. So it's very important that you find that group, that circle of people who are a little bit further along in your path and learn from them. Be open and honest and get that accountability so that they can speak into your life. This comes from trusting other people, but you won't ever trust others until you trust yourself. And so that leads me to number 2. If you can't lead from behind your front door, you have no business leading outside of it. So you have to seek to lead first in your home. And then, only then, can you go out with integrity and lead outside of it. I see this all the time. People out there that are men's coaches, they're they lead men's groups, and they're telling men what they should be doing, when in fact they should be taking their own advice and doing that inside their home. And I can't tell you how many people I've know that are out there influencing so many people. I'll come to find out that they're doing the complete opposite. And nothing is more taxing on your integrity than trying to give advice to other people and tell people what they should be doing, and then you not following suit. And it's heartbreaking because there's so many men out there who are trying to figure it out, who are trying to get the tools and the tactics to be better, only to find that they're following somebody who is not even congruent with the words that they say and the actions they take. And so you got to first lead inside your home. Don't chase fame and fortune at the mercy of your family. And that's one thing that I realized as I started getting into speaking, as I started getting into coaching, as I started leading more people, is that if I'm going to be doing this, if I'm going to put myself out there, if I'm going to go out and speak to the masses, then I better make sure that I'm in congruency with the character and the consistency and the confidence that I speak with. And one of the things that I did in 2019 was I started, getting paid to speak, and I started traveling and going to different states to speak at conferences. And I realized that I don't like being away from my family. Like, no amount of money is worth missing time with my kids. And this epiphany came to me because I would have to leave on Thursday night, get to the venue on Friday, do a rehearsal, meet people, meet and greets, dinners and all that, lavish crap, and then be back Sunday night, late at night, and then go to work on Monday. I'm a full-time naval officer, and it took a lot of time from me. And I felt like, man, I can't continue to do this. I can't continue to go out and speak to the masses and be absent from my home. And so in my speaking clause, I put in there that I will only travel if my family's travel is included as well. And this made a big difference because now my kids and my wife get to see what it is that I'm doing, why I'm choosing to be away from the home. And now I don't travel at all. Like that has all been put aside because now I'm coaching my kids baseball. I'm actively involved with my kids every single day. And you cannot, I don't care who you are, what you do, you cannot find balance when your priorities are jacked up. And so my priority at this season of my life is my kids, to raise good kids, because I can make all the money in the world, but what is it to make all that money and lose the meaningful impact and influence in my own children's life, in my family's life? And so today you see me doing this podcast, and I speak at work and I speak locally, but I rarely do I travel because I do not want to be away from my home. I don't want to be away from my family because they need me right now in this season more than ever before. And so while you're trying to provide for your family, understand that your purpose is not in the money that you make or the title or the position. It's in being present. Your children need your presence, not your presence. And this is huge because I see people all the time that chase this validation from online, social media. They chase this acceptance from other people when you should be getting that from your own family. And when you don't, then you need to reevaluate your priorities and understand that your purpose is in the lives of the people that live and sleep right next to you. And so the next one, number 3, you got to put your pride and ego aside. Once you have children, once you are charged with the role of being a father, it's no longer about you. It doesn't matter what you want. It's what you need to do to be a good father, to be a good husband, to be a good leader, to be present. And one thing that I had to realize is that when I became a dad, I had to put my own pride and ego, my own agenda aside. In the military, it's very hard to do because we deploy all the time. We're always climbing the rank ladder. We're trying to promote. We're trying to progress. But I see this all the time where men, especially, they will promote and progress and move forward and achieve more positions that require them to be outside of the home more. And I'll tell you that that's one of the reasons why I gave up being a bedside nurse. I gave up critical care and trauma and all that stuff because it required me to work day shift, night shift, deploy nonstop. And I realized that that is not conducive to a healthy relationship with my wife and my kids. And so I gave that up and I specialized in education and training because I can go and do my job and be home in time for dinner. I can go and be home on the weekends. I can, be able to have this balance between being a good father, a good husband, a good spouse, and being a good leader. And many people today, unfortunately, will talk about leadership. They'll talk about progression and success. But most of the people that are doing this don't have a family. And if they do, it's not good. The relationships aren't good. And I just don't know how you can speak with integrity and lead with character when you're chasing credentials. I've yet to find somebody who can do that. I can't do that. And so I had to choose which one is going to take precedence over the other. And for me, that's always my family. And that's why you'll always hear me talk about my family, my kids. If you look at my social media, if you look at how I live my life, my kids are the center of my world, because failure to me is not getting fired. Failure to me is not losing my career. Failure to me is losing the respect and the influence in my kid's life as a father. And so I want you to really analyze your priorities when you come to this, right? You got to put your pride and ego aside because you only have them for so long. And once they're grown and they leave the home, the only thing you can do is hope that the time that you spent with them, the influence that you had with them, will carry them into their next chapter of their life, and that you raised good men, good women, and made sure that you have left a lasting impact that's going to carry for generations to come. The next one, whether your spouse and you are together or whether you get along or you don't, it doesn't mean that you can't be a good father just because you're not there. Maybe you went through a divorce. Maybe your significant other and you separated. You can still be present. You can still be involved. You can still be there mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. But I see so many men today, especially, they'll go through a breakup and they let that anger and frustration that they have with their spouse dictate how they show up for their kids. And I'll tell you that that goes back to the number three: put your pride and ego aside. It's not about you anymore. It's not about the relationship or how it fell apart. You can still be intentional with how you lead your children. And I'll tell you that, my wife and I, we get into arguments. We don't see eye to eye all the time. But at the end of the day, we understand that it's not about us, it's about our kids. What example are we setting for them? And if, God forbid, something should happen to our marriage, our kids would still be our priority. We would still have time to spend with them. And that we have this agreement that we would never keep our kids away from each other. But how many times do you see this today where the marriage doesn't work? The dad leaves and never comes back. They let this anger and frustration fall into the relationships with their kids. And I have five, but I'm gonna give you an extra one just because this was a huge one for me. And this is around the topic of forgiveness. My dad is a drug addict, and I haven't talked to him in years. And one of the best things I did in 2013 was I came back from a deployment, and I just had this feeling on my heart. I call it, a God experience. I had this feeling in my heart to call and forgive him. And I picked up the phone, called my sister, and I said, "Hey, what's dad's number?" And she's like, "Well, you haven't talked to him in years. Why do you want his number?" And she gave it to me, and I called him, and he didn't know who I was, which was interesting because I'm his only son and I'm named after him. I'm Anthony Stephen Waite Jr. And I called him and I said, "I forgive you for the way that you are, for the life that you chose. And I'm sorry for whatever I did to make you resent me as your child." And he hung up the phone. And from that day forward, there was this weight lifted off my shoulders. There was all the anger and frustration that I had towards my parents just dissolved. And it was a huge turning point in my life. And 2 years later, I would have my first son. I would be a father. And I truly believe that that forgiveness allowed me to love unconditionally, to see things differently, to understand that it's not about that, what happened in the past. It's about how I pave the path moving forward. And so if that's you, I want you to understand that forgiveness is a huge, huge opportunity for you to forge a future with your children. And now I'm married with my two kids, and I'll tell you that the forgiveness played a big role. So whether it's forgiving your father, forgiving your mother, forgiving your wife, your ex-wife, or whatever it is, that forgiveness doesn't let that person go for the wrongdoing. It helps you let go of the hope that things could have been different. And when you do that, now you realize I don't owe anybody anything. I don't owe anybody a damn thing, but I do owe my children every opportunity to be successful. And so forgiveness is a huge, huge opportunity for those who are dealing with hurt right now. The next one, the best gift that you can give your kids is a foundation of faith. And this is something that I'm learning just over the last year, a little over a year now, but I never really shared faith with my children. I never really shared who God is and what he means to me and how he's changed me from the inside out. But as of the last year, I've been surrounded by some amazing, amazing men who are grounded in faith. And they're a little bit older than me, but they're a little bit further on this walk. And when I asked them, like, what is a big part of how you show up as a father, as a husband, as a leader? And every one of them will tell you that it was their faith in something bigger than themselves. And for them, it's their faith in God. And one of my goals was to start praying with my children and start helping them understand that you need faith when you're navigating this world. As a man, if you're leading a family, faith is that cornerstone to being a good father. And no matter what you believe in, you still have to have faith in something bigger than yourself. This helps you put your pride and ego aside. And I'll give you an example. The other day, my sons went to go try out for this baseball team. And now my 7-year-old is really good. He's a good little baseball player. He's got very good skill. He's very confident in his ability. But my 8-year-old, not so much. He sees his brother playing. He sees how much we invest in the baseball and to his sports. And And my 8-year-old said, Dad, I want to play baseball. And so we went to go try out for this team. And as we were leaving the practice, they both got, accepted and got a place on the team. And my 8-year-old was just so happy. He was so excited. And we got in the truck and he was sitting in the front seat and he said, Dad, he said, I want you to know that I prayed. I prayed to God last night that I would make the team. And he said, he answered my prayers. And it just filled my heart to know that he believes in something bigger than himself, that he has faith that with God, all things are possible. Now, what's cool about this is as we were leaving to practice, there was this white dove in our front yard, like just out of the blue, this big white bird, beautiful dove. And when he saw it, he was like, "Oh man, Dad, take a picture." He's like, "It's a very rare white dove in our yard." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I took a picture of it with my phone. And when we were in the truck and we were driving home and we were talking about faith and we were talking about God, and he told me he prayed, he said, "Do you believe that that was God talking to us with the white bird in our front yard?" And me growing in my faith as a man was able to speak with conviction and say, "Yes, I do believe that. I absolutely believe that." And he just had this big smile on his face. And it's just amazing to be able to pass that on to him because that's going to impact my grandchildren. Whenever your children are grounded in faith, no matter what the storm may be, they're able to weather the storm because they're living and breathing for something bigger. They're believing for something bigger. And the best thing you can do as a father, as a man, as a husband, as a leader is to be grounded in faith. And not only that, but to be able to have the boldness to share that faith, especially in a world today where so many people are lost. We have people that don't know if they're a man or if they're a woman, if they're a llama, if they're a rhinoceros, or if they're a season. Your job is to help them understand it, who they are and how they were created. And this has been a big pivotal moment in my life just over the last year and a half. And as I continue to grow in my faith, I'm able to transfer that into my children. And that's transformation. But you cannot be an example of transformation until you have been transformed. And the Bible talks about transformation. And it talks about, don't conform to the ways of the world, but instead be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so, men, happy Father's Day. My prayer for you is that you take the time to just analyze your thoughts and how you think and what you think about being a good father, what you think about being a good husband, a good leader, and then have the boldness to go out there and share that with the world, to go out there and be the example of what a father is and does and what they look like in the world and how they show up. Hey, baby, how are you?
Good.
Love you.
I
You got me a gift. Thank you, buddy. Oh, thank you. I love you.
Me too.
Hey, come here. And so this is completely not scripted. I promise you. My son just woke up this morning, and as I'm recording this, he gave me a little note. Happy Father's Day. Love you. What would you tell people that are watching this um, about me being a father? Am I a good dad?
Mm.
What would you say is my best character trait? What is the best thing about me being your dad?
You like doing activities?
Yeah. What else?
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
I don't know.
Are you glad I'm your father?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Love you, buddy.
Me too.
All right. I'll be down in a minute.
Mm.
And so, yeah. So that being said, I want you, he gave me some almond joys. This is my favorite. When I do snack, this is my favorite almond joys. But I want you to understand that the impact and influence that you have is greater than you could ever imagine, greater than you may know right now. And if for those who aren't a father yet, I want you to understand that your confidence doesn't come by being ready to be a father. It comes by doing the work, by navigating being a father. Every one of us have potential as men. Don't let anybody take that away from you. And so happy Father's Day to all of you men out there. I'm proud of you. I love you. And I look forward to just seeing the fruit that comes from your ability to lead yourself and to be the example that the world desperately needs today. Have a good one today. I'll talk to you soon.